So, unfortunately, back on Valentine's Day, we lost our fearless leader of the Tango 31 Aero Club, our beloved Kevin Lacey, succumbed to liver cancer, but he sure gave us a courageous battle, and we were blessed enough to have Kevin with us for a lot longer than the doctor said he would be with us. But we are continuing our mission with the Tango 31 Aero Club, and of course, we know Kevin was a very colorful man. He was a one of a kind, and we all have our Kevin stories from in the hangar. So, who wants to start? Brillo, would you like to share a quick Kevin Lacey story?
This story, it's funny now, but at the time was not. So we flew, it was my first time ever flying with Kev, and we decided me, Thunder, and Kev went down to Ranger for the fly-in just for the day. So she asked, do you want to fly there or back? So I was like, I'll fly back. And first time ever flying a 172, I have to take off on the grass. So he's, trying to tell me and make me figure it out. I get off the ground, and then we're on our way back. So I've got maybe 1.2 hours total. And he goes, all right, we're going to navigate using VORs. I don't know what that is. So I'm just like, all right, cool, let's do it. And he goes, all you have to do is follow that little stick right there and just hold your line right there and keep going. What he didn't tell me was when you get right over the VOR site, it's going to start to go back and forth a little bit. So I'm going back and forth trying to chase it. And because colorful language was said towards me, and I sat there white-knuckling the yoke like no one else. I was so scared. He was yelling at me for the entire hour and a half flight back, but it was so funny when we got back on the ground because I turned around right after I landed. Savannah unplugged her headset because she was tired of hearing it. And you can generally tell if your flight was good or not depending on how quick you lit a cigarette after the flight.
Right.
I didn't make it back to the hangar. As soon as I touched down, window open, cigarette.
Uh-oh.
I think that's a record for the fastest because he was playing with the pack in the air.
Oh, my word.
And, yeah, but it's funny now considering that was the only flight I ever did with him. But then as soon as I did my check ride, he was at the hangar for when I got back and, was telling me that he was proud of me considering I went from that to now I'm a private pilot. But yeah, it was very scary back at the time when I was in that airplane. But as soon as I got on the ground and we started talking about it, it was pretty funny.
That's awesome. Really, thanks for sharing that
story.
Of course. All right, Professor, tell us your favorite Kev story.
Well, Kev and I flew a lot. My first flight was with him in his slow hawk, and that was an interesting flight. But on top of all that, we flew to Oshkosh a couple times, and I did a little bit of training with him. I think my worst flight ever was with him at night.
Uh-oh.
And it was my first night flight, first time putting on the the hood, and I couldn't see anything, and I had no idea what I was doing. But he wasn't going to say anything. He was just going to let me mess around and find out. It's probably the best way to put that. And, well, I did. And I think I found myself about 140 knots in the 150, which is just about the max you can go. And he was always that person that would let you push the limits and find out on your own why you shouldn't do something. And it got pretty colorful during that flight. I think he might have thought that I was a little slow, but it's moments like that where you just realize how good of an instructor he was, because not a lot of people do that. Mm-hmm. And I'm finding it kind of myself as an instructor trying to be more like him, because I think I learned the most in probably the 20 hours that I got with him than I did with anybody else.
Awesome.
I'll never forget that.
Thank you for sharing that. All right. Beer Money, I know you've got something quite comical to share.
I have a lot. There's a lot of moments with Kev. Before I start, I will say I'll never, anytime I think back to Kev, I think of the times where I came back with good or bad news, and his probably favorite words to me, which they were colorful, so I'll simplify it and just say, "Dang it, Beer Money," is the simplified version of what he would used to say. But anytime I gave him news and it wasn't something that he necessarily was ready for or wanted to hear, he would let me have it, and he told me straight up. But I think one of my favorite memories is my first solo, and it was with Kev, and I was one of the last club members of the originals to solo and everything like that. And I kept starting and stopping and going back and forth. So it took me a while to get there. But once I did, I'll never forget the flight we were flying. And Kev told me to pull over, and he wanted a cigarette. And I was like, well, I messed that one up, thinking the flight was over and I did a terrible job. And then he gets out and he's like, well, why don't you go take it around the pattern a couple times? And I was like, huh? I looked at him confused, and I was like, "What are you talking about, Kev?" And he's like, "Well, it's time for you to solo, young man. Go on up." And as I rolled away, I was shaking, nervous, first time solo and everything. And I just remember going around, and Kev somehow managed to pull a radio out of thin air and was talking to me as I was going. And I came back down, and he was like, "Well, that was pretty good, young man. You ready to go home?" And I was like, "Kev, I don't even know what to say." Like, I just full of so many emotions and everything. And I'll always have that memory of Kev, and that first solo, I'm really grateful was with him. So, yeah, that's it.
But thank you, Beer Money. A lot of stories that come into mind in that hangar.
Yep, very many. There's a lot.
We'll keep them to ourselves.
Yeah.
All right, Mouse, let's have your Kevin story.
So, yeah, just like others have been saying, flying with him it's a very fun experience. So, during the time you're like panicking, you're freaking out, you have no idea what he's yelling at you about half the time, and then once you get on the ground, you realize, wow, I've actually learned a whole lot. So, like Professor said, I've learned more from him than anyone else, both in the air and on the ground, with the mechanics side of things, flying. I remember my favorite time was, I think I had like 10 hours or something, and I was coming into McKinney. It's a huge runway, and there was a pretty strong crosswind, and I haven't mastered my crosswind landing technique at all. So I was coming in, I was crabbing in the entire time, and like others have said, Kevin let you did pretty much anything unless you broke the plane.
Mm-hmm.
So I was coming in sideways, and I didn't do anything, and I just landed the plane sideways. So the whole plane completely like shook and raucous. Kevin almost flew out the door.
Oh, no.
And then I was like, "What happened there, Kevin? What did I do wrong?" And he just slaps my legs and the pilots, and he's like, "Use your legs, youngin." And yeah, I'm not going to repeat it verbatim, but
Again, colorful.
yes. But I'll always remember that. And from then on, I figured I got to use that rudder to line for the crosswind landings. So that was fun times.
Thanks, Mouse. Thank you guys for sharing your stories. Kevin will be in our hearts and our memories forever, and we're going to continue our mission with the Tango 31 Aero Club and continue Kevin's legacy, because this was his crowning achievement, this Aero Club, and I'm proud to be a part of this club with you guys. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.